Hello, Maverick Currency traders. This is Rob Reinhold. I'm joined by Mr. Ankit Sharma. This is the Currency Room going into the fourth week of January. Let's get into it. In this session, we're going to go through the news of the week. We're going to take a look at the broad markets, and then we go through all of our currencies and crypto, and we score them from +3 to -3, and that tells us where we're going to hunt for the week.
Disclaimer. This video was created for professional Forex and crypto traders. Maverick Currencies is a proprietary trading firm that employs professional traders around the world. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits they generate. All trades and analysis in this video are for professional traders only. If you are interested in becoming a professional Forex and currency trader for Maverick, click the apply button in the video description. Let's get ready for next week.
Before we jump into next week, we need to wrap up I think it's the 10th annual Maverick Fantasy Football winners. We have our grand champion, Kelvin H. He crushed it. He had a record of 15-1. 15-1 was by far the best record out there of all of the pool winners. And he won a nice $250 gift card to Amazon. Pool winners, you can look at the names. One of those names is familiar to me, but I was not the grand champion. But look, we love fantasy football. We think it's a great thing to do together as a firm, but it also really helps you learn how to pick winners and losers. And I know I'm making a big stretch to fantasy football and trading, but I actually did a podcast this week. If you go to YouTube and you go to the No Nonsense Forex channel, that's one of our longtime Maverick Forex traders. I do a trading psychology podcast with him, and we did a whole episode on what you can learn from fantasy football that helps you in trading. I think it's a great way to learn things. I also think poker is a great way to learn about trading. So look, if you want to check out that episode, it's not out yet, but it'll probably be out in 2 to 3 weeks. We just recorded this last week. So congratulations to all the fantasy football winners. Our next thing we do together as a firm for sports is March Madness. So NCAA college basketball March Madness. That is obviously going to be in March. So we always have fun with these, and hopefully everyone had fun this year. Also, we sent out an email about the Maverick 2025 Trading Summit in Vegas. It is April 26th and 27th. So we sent everybody a link to register for it. If you've never been to one of our summits, they're so much fun. Look, first of all, they're just so much fun. Obviously, it's in Vegas, which is fun. We've done these in Vegas, Chicago, and New York. But Vegas is always kind of a special one. And we meet together, we go over trading aspects, and we look at different things in trading. But for the most part, the greatest thing is you get to come in, meet other like-minded traders. Online trading is a lonely game, and when you can surround yourself with people that you can meet and talk to. Look, you're not going to become friends with everybody, but you might find a couple people that you really click with, and you go home and you have people's contact information, their phone numbers, and you can talk trading and meet up. It is awesome. It is really one of the best things. So if you haven't been to one before, I highly recommend you come. All the information that you need to answer your questions is in the email. If you did not get that email, please send a message to one of us and we will get it to you. So registration is open. We'd love to see you there. All right, so let's start off with equities. Equities had a big bounce. They were weak the first couple of days, and then we got the CPI on Wednesday that ignited a stock market rally, and we had a nice 3% move for the week. A really nice week in stocks. And in fact, we'll take a look at the S&P. The S&P is now broken out. We've gone from being in a downtrend to now the start of an uptrend. We'll take a look at all that. Now, we did see the 10-year bond yield sell off, which was one of the catalysts for the stock market rally. The bonds got up to like 4.8%, and the market was really shaky. And then the news came out, and we dropped all the way down to 4.5. So the bonds sold off, but the dollar did not sell off whatsoever. The dollar stayed strong, and that's a sign that it does not want to weaken. The pound was very weak. We'll take a look at that. Looks like there is now a greater chance of a rate cut from the Bank of England than there was before. And then crypto's had a great rally. Crypto's rallied with the rest of the equities. We are now seeing crypto pretty correlated with equity prices. When equity prices go up, crypto goes up. We got Bitcoin back above 100,000. Let's take a look at some of the news of the week, and it really was just all about inflation this week. US PPI was weaker than expected, and then this CPI was also weaker than expected. So all of a sudden now, this worry that the Fed wasn't going to be as aggressive, we're looking for 2 rate cuts this year, people are now saying, oh, we think we are going to get 2 rate cuts, where last week they were starting to take some of those bets away. This was the news that really got the pound. Lower inflation out of the UK tells us the Bank of England is most likely going to cut. Australia had a great employment report. The Aussie dollar was the strongest currency. And then you can see we had some other things. Retail sales look slightly below expectations, but no one really cares. So we have an economy that's holding in, inflation that is cooling off a bit. We're going to see probably more central bank action to cuts than raises. So what does that mean for all of the numbers? Let's go through them. We got equities up 3%. Look at that move in crypto. That's a little bit lopsided because Litecoin had just a stellar week, up 34%. Oil, gold up. Again, it was an up week across the board. And I want to take a look at the S&P chart because technically something really changed. We had been seeing lower lows, lower highs. We've been seeing that. And as long as that was going on, we were getting a risk-off move. You can see here we now have a couple things. We have the S&P above the 20 moving average, above the 50 moving average. That's very substantial. Very substantial. It's the first time since the high in December that we've seen that. We also are above this trend line. If you were just looking at technicals and you threw out all of your biases, this is likely the start of the next bull run. Likely the start of the next bull run. Now let me throw in a wrinkle because there's always wrinkles. Now look, I know we always say you have to trade technicals, just technicals. But we can't be blind to what's going on out there in the world. So one of the things that is coming up on Monday, the equity markets are closed for the U.S. holiday in the United States, but we are going to be having the inauguration of the next administration. And the next administration has promised on day one that they're going to send out about 100 executive orders. Executive orders are when the president has certain powers that he doesn't need to get Congress to approve them. The president can just do them. Usually you get about 20 executive orders on the first day in office. 100 is pretty spectacular. In these executive orders are highly likely to be very restrictive tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. So the market looks bullish here. And if this was any other time, I would be kind of pounding the table like, hey, this is a good technical breakout. We're going to the upside. I don't want to do that yet because it's just like, taking a major position right before a Fed meeting. You know that the Fed meeting can change things very dramatically. So I am bullish. I do think it's going to go higher, but I think there's some risk on, let's call it Monday, Tuesday. So we'll get those executive orders either Monday night or Tuesday morning. That's going to potentially be a shocker to things. I know, Anka, you and I talked about this. I mean, what do you think is likely to happen here with these executive orders?
Hey, Rob. Well, yeah, I mean, this is, again, being a pressing topic, and we can see a lot of that in currency movement. But again, I think that we'll see what happens. But it seems like, in the second term, people are more expected for like a worst case scenario. So you see, that's where we're seeing the dollar being a defensive trade, and we're seeing other things that, likely to weaken off that. I feel like a lot of that's already reflected in that price where, you take a look at dollar CAD is sitting at, 10-year highs, and strengthening into this. So it seems like there's a lot of hype and built up. on a worst case scenario. And I think this is where it's going to make an interesting play because, do we, with all these expectation in play, it's just like trading a news event. Does that meet the expectation? Does that go above the expectation, or does that go below the expectation? And I think there's going to be a market response based on that. So again, I think everybody's kind of preparing for the worst. I was reading out of Canada, they're preparing for, retaliation tariffs. So it seems like everybody's sort of gearing up for this big thing where, everybody's prepared for the worst case scenario. So we'll see what happens. And, if that hype doesn't meet the expectation, we could see some big corrections and moves accordingly. So I think that's really what I think. I think it's going to be just like trading a news event, and we just have to see how worse it is. And if it's less worse, then we'll probably see some big moves, especially in some currencies that are kind of preparing ahead for it.
And you're exactly right, Ankit. I mean, this Canadian dollar, this is most likely to do with the potential tariffs that the U.S. is going to put on Canada, and vice versa. The dollar has stayed strong. It was down a little bit for the week, but you'll see on the chart it is not showing any weakness. So here is the play here, and this is really going to be what our focus is this week. There is some risk in dollar, CAD, Mexican peso, China, but we don't trade the Chinese yuan. But so that's going to bleed over into Australia, New Zealand a little bit. So that's where the risk is going to be. So the big question is, okay, well, if that's where the risk is, that's where all this tariff stuff is going to hit, where's it not going to hit? And I think, there's been no talk about tariffs against Japan. There's been talks about tariffs against Europe, but it's not going to be on day one. So I think you can play here. I think you can play here and really avoid the tariff stuff. Now, look, I love to play news, so I'm going to be playing in dollar. I'm going to be playing in CAD and some of the other currencies. But if you want to avoid that altogether, I think it's a great opportunity to just focus on trading European currencies against each other or look to pair things up against the yen. Crypto is likely going to continue to move higher. I say this because this administration is very, very crypto friendly. It's why we got that huge rally in November and December. And after a base, and we'll take a look at all the cryptos, we've been basing for a long time. Now that the next administration is in, it's going to be probably good news for these cryptos. So we'll take a look at these charts and see if there's any opportunity on those. All right, we already took a look at the S&P. I want to take a look at bonds. I mentioned bonds got up to 4.8%. We got this pullback. Okay. The stock market does not like it at 4.8%. It's much happier at 4.6%. But again, did the dollar pull back like this? It didn't. So it's telling us that the dollar is going higher when interest rates are going higher, but not lower when interest rates are going lower. It's telling you still the dollar is a one-way trade. There's no shorting of dollar. It should be mostly all longs on dollar. And crypto, this is what I was talking about. We've been consolidating for a while now. And you can see that consolidation looks like it's over. So the next run in crypto could be happening here. We will take a look at all the charts individually. This week, we do have a lot of news. So speaking of that CAD, we got Canadian CPI on Tuesday. Look, I think a dollar CAD is likely going to be the biggest mover of the week. I think if that's your game, I think that's where you go hunt in dollar CAD. But if that's not your game, I think you just need to avoid these because as you can see here, not only do we have this major tariff news, but we got CPI news, we got retail sales news. I mean, the CAD is definitely going to be in play this week. We also have employment out of the UK on Tuesday and the CPI out of New Zealand. I do think the Aussie and the Kiwi are a little bit less affected by tariffs. The proposed tariffs, at least that we've heard, are an additional 10% on China. So I think we're at 20% already on China. An additional 10% isn't killer. That's not going to ruin a lot of things. So I don't see that one as that big of a deal. I think the Aussie, the Kiwi are going to be less affected. But look at the Kiwi has the CPI report on Tuesday. So obviously, Kiwi is also going to be in play. And after that, we really just have Bank of Japan. Bank of Japan out on Thursday night, Friday morning. And then I don't think these European PMIs mean all that much. So really, the first part of this week, I think there's going to be lots and lots of movement. Once we get the executive orders, once we get that Canadian CPI, CPI out of New Zealand, after that, I think it's going to calm down and be a more trending market to where whatever happened on that Monday or Tuesday just simply continues to move. So I do like this as a trading week. I said that last week that I really like this week as a trading week. It kind of turned out to be a little bit of a dud in my opinion, but I still think this is a good trading environment where you do want to be active looking for positions. So let's go through these currencies and score them all from +3 to -3 on both trend and velocity. I'm going to be going through the cryptos first. And on Bitcoin, I've been talking about Bitcoin has been going from 92 to 102, 92 to 102, 92 to 102. And other than the brief little pop in December above it, that's been the range, 92 to 102. Take a look at it here, 105. We've got a little bit of resistance up at 108. And then after that, it is all-time highs. I don't see any reason why Bitcoin does not make an all-time high here. So I do like Bitcoin long. The question is Bitcoin the best crypto? Because crypto has a whole bunch of coins in it. We want to be in the best one. Just like in Forex, we want to be in the one with the most strength. So right now, Bitcoin looks fantastic. Let's take a look at the rest. Ethereum does not look great. And frankly, it is not even broken out of its range it's been in. Bitcoin's already challenging new all-time highs. This one's not. Look, it's underperforming. Don't fall into the trap of, well, hey, this one hasn't gone up as much, so it's got more to go. Hopefully you've been trading long enough to know that that is a trap. That's a trap. These tend to underperform, even if they break out, probably going to underperform. So this is Bitcoin Cash. Let's take a look at Ethereum, and you can see Ethereum is even worse. Ethereum is even worse. So again, I don't like Bitcoin Cash. I don't like Ethereum. Technically, this is just not as good. It's probably going to go up, but remember, you want to be in the best one, not the one that has underperformed the most. So I think Ethereum is not the answer either. And then we got Litecoin that is already at all-time, well, not quite all-time highs, but you can see we broke out of this resistance area, and we're off to the races here. Now, look, this is up 34% for the week. I don't buy things that go up after they go up 34% for the week. I wait for pullbacks and consolidations. But this one is awesome. So Bitcoin and Litecoin, but as far as which one likely has more upside at this point, I'm definitely going to go to Bitcoin. So I'll be taking a look at the Bitcoin chart and talking about levels when we get to that. Ankit, will you please take us through the Forex markets?
Absolutely. Well, let's just start with good old dollar. As you can see, this thing is resilient. So really no change in that trend in velocity score. But you can see that there's a bit of a slowdown in that little pattern there. We are right testing that 20-day moving average. I think the dollar has mostly held up. And again, I think it's just the anticipation of next week. But again, if the bond yields continues to pull back, and if once this the fear of these tariffs are over, once that's behind us, I think we'll probably get a better move in the dollar. Again, I talked about this before. That resistance level that you see there, that's a very long-term resistance level. So we are at some key levels, and I think dollar has a potential to go, or move either way. So I think you got to stand by on the dollar here and see, okay, which way it breaks out first. Does it break out to the upside? Or does it break out to the downside? I think that's really where I'm going to make that trade. I don't want to make a trade when it's stuck in between that tight range because, we are right up against a resistance. So at the same time, like Rob said, it's not a shortable currency. All week, all throughout this week, every time we saw dollar pull back, it rallied. So that seems like a play over here, but I think you want to be cautious on either buying the dollar or selling the dollar. I think this is the one that you got to watch out for some volatility. And once that's out of the way next week, and we'll probably see a better trend. But, there's definitely a lot going on as far as the sentiment goes. So on the other hand, beside the dollar, I think the yen is the one that we got to pay attention to. And we also have the Bank of Japan this week, and they're expected to raise rates. So remember, we've been talking about the Bank of Japan, the monetary policy. As they move to raise rates, I think this is going to again provide a big catalyst for the Japanese yen. So again, we got to pay attention to dollar yen, see what dollar yen does, because we are sitting at some key levels on dollar yen at 156. So this is the one, again, it's holding up. I think if you're looking for the next big trade, personally speaking, I think it's going to be the yen, especially if they come out and do surprise with their outlook or with their rate hike. In the shorter term, you can see that it's pulling back, but that's just, again, because of that market sentiment today is very bullish, and that's just really pulling back the yen. But I think yen is going to be an interesting play going into next week. Now, talking about weakness, I think Swiss franc is the one that's showing me that weakness, but at the same time, it's stuck between that range. So this is a mild bearish, but I would say I know we're getting a nice -2 on the trend score, but until it really breaks that support, I'm not really going to be jumping on, as an extremely bearish play. This is, still stuck in that range, mild bearish. Overall, you can see that this thing is not responding as a state of a currency. Remember, for the last year, every time we saw a flight towards safety, we saw the Swiss franc goes up. So that's not the case. So I think that's a one less thing to worry about. But I do like Swiss franc on this downside if it breaks that support. Now, on the contrarian end, we have the euro, which you can see that it's just holding in on that level. So trend score is 0. It's not really bullish. It's not really bearish. So let's not trade that. Let's move on to things that are actually moving. And then based on that, we have the pound is the one that's really moving. You can see that this thing is right up against the support, but it's very relatively weak around that level. Look at those shadows over there. We're not really getting a bounce here. So what we have is these expectation for further sort of rate cuts that are building up. I think there's a lot going on with the pound here. So I do like pound to the short side, and we are getting a nice consolidation on the 4-hour chart. And I think this is where I think it's just building up on a relative weakness. It's just building up some energy to even break down further. So I do like the pound to the downside, especially once it breaks below that key support area. Now let's just take a look at some of the growth currencies. So again, like Rob said, CAD is going to be an interesting one. You can see that CAD on a basket level is not the worst, but it's not the best. It's right at 0. So and I think that a lot of that really has to do with potential tariffs that could impact the currency. But once that's out of the way, I think CAD probably have a better outlook. But right now, I think this is a trump card. This is a card that could go either way. So we'll just wait and see. Now Aussie, look at this one. This one, is sort of improving that score. We were at like -2, even a -3, but then now the score is sort of improving. So just telling us that it's going in that consolidation phase. Now it doesn't look like a buy until it really gets above that 50-day moving average. But at the same time, it doesn't really look like a big sell that it has been, especially in the month of December. So looking at this Aussie here, it's right at 0 as well. So again, those currencies that are giving us a 0 score, we want to be flexible on the direction on those. And now again, if we need to pick a weaker currency, I think Kiwi is still under pressure. But even this one is sort of stabilizing here a little bit. It's not out of the woods yet. It's still stabilizing. So I think this is the way we are in these currencies where it doesn't look like a great sell, but it doesn't look like a great buy. And I feel like there's a lot of currencies that are that way, where including the dollar, it doesn't look like a great buy, it doesn't look like a great sell. So I think you want to just let the direction dictate where we want to go. But we might be in the early stages of making that call, so we'll find out what happened next week. Back to you, Rob.
Thanks, Ankit. And if we take what we've looked at and we basically take that dollar off the table and we take the CAD off the table, here's what we're left with. We're left with weak Kiwi, but doesn't have any velocity right now. The pound has good velocity to the downside. So for me, pound is my favorite short this week. Probably Swiss franc number 2. We talked about, hey, if you want to avoid all the messiness, then why don't you trade the European currencies against each other? The euro is just a 0, but relatively speaking, it's much better than these two. So for me, I'm going to be looking at pairing up euro Swiss franc, euro pound to try to avoid that volatility. But if I am looking for that volatility, then again, dollar CAD. Dollar CAD is where the most likely volatility is going to be. And then second that, dollar yen. So those are the currencies that I'm going to take a look at based on their trend scores. But what's hot right now? Crypto. Crypto is definitely the thing moving right now. So let's go in and take a look at a couple of potential setups. Out of all the cryptos, I like Bitcoin the best. And again, as you can see, that long consolidation, we're really looking to break out of that. We got a little bit left in this 107, 108 area. I just don't see any reason why it doesn't break that. That doesn't mean it's going to break it right here, right now. We have spent a little bit of gas to get up there. So that means that, okay, maybe we come up to this 108 level and maybe we pause here. Maybe we have a little bit of a pullback. If we have a little bit of a pullback, again, pull back down to 103, that is a beautiful little sweet spot. We can get a pullback to 103. I'm definitely looking to be in between like the 103, the 106 area. I like that for a pullback. This to me is a great looking trade on the long side. It has everything going for it. It's crazy because as a new trader, I hated to buy things as they broke out to all-time highs. I love to buy things when they break out to all-time highs now. It's telling me this is the best it's ever been. This is the best party that's ever been on this symbol. So it's a good thing to break out to all-time highs. All right, so that is in crypto. I think that's a no-brainer here. Let's move into some of the other ones. I want to take a look at pairing up, stuff like euro against pound. If you want to get away from all of this tariff talk, all of this stuff that could happen, then I think this is where you want to go play, is stuff like euro pound. And you can see we're hitting up against some major resistance here at 84.50. Once it breaks through that, really 85.50 is the next point. That's 1.3% away. I think it's just a matter of time. We're knocking up against that door. We've got an ascending triangle pattern forming here. If it doesn't break through here, it's going to probably pull back, break through. I just like this trade where it is. For me, this is already a go ahead and take a shot. Make sure that your stop is not tighter than this base. So I think your stop has to be at least below 84. If you want to have a tighter stop, then I think you have to wait for an actual breakout, maybe up to 84.60. But I like to get in while they're consolidating and just have a stop underneath that level. So I can just hang out there. If it takes a couple days to break, no problem whatsoever. I'm happy to be there. So that's euro pound. Let's take a look at euro Swiss franc. So you can see euro Swiss franc doesn't look as good, but take a look at where it's starting to consolidate. We break out above that 94.20 to 94.40 area. There is just a whole lot of room for moves. And you can see once we break out of that, 95, 95.20 is really the next level. I like these currencies. I don't play these currency crosses a lot. I only play them in kind of special situations like this. But these are the ones that I do like. Dollar yen. I also think, along with dollar CAD, that dollar yen is going to be pretty crazy this week. We got the dollar moving on tariffs. We've got the Bank of Japan raising rates from ultra low levels. I think this has all the hallmarks of a big trade here. Whether it's to the upside or the downside, you can see where it is. It is pulling back into an area of support and getting a bounce. So for me, it's got to be a long trade only. It's got to fit my rules where I have, like on a daily chart, I need it to be falling moving averages. I don't have falling moving averages. That's my number one rule, is on a daily chart, I can only be long when the moving averages are going up. I can only be short when the moving averages are going down. In this case, I can only be long dollar yen. So again, I'm not really looking at this one, but I think this one's going to be a big mover. Anka, what do you want to take a look at?
Hey, Rob. Well, as we take a look at charts, let's just take a look at dollar CAD. Because, as we talk about dollar CAD quite a bit, here we are with the dollar CAD. Look at that consolidation and look at that resistance. So Again, this is going to be, like we said, it's going to be a big one. But at the same time, look at the levels that you're at. I mean, look at the run that we kind of come across. So the question is, do we break out or do we sort of roll over from here? So this is right at the top of that resistance. So pay attention to this one, and like I said, like be careful with the whole buy the rumor, sell the news. That's the one thing I'm kind of watching out for. Just in case when we don't see that expectation met. It's just less, worse than what's expected. I think then that trade can easily reverse off those levels as well. And again, if those are not that great, then we can see that breakout at that key level. So watch out for that key level break or a key level reversal. Outside of that, again, if you want to avoid all that volatility, pound Aussie, I think pound probably continues to be, moving lower. I mean, here we are just consolidating. We got a big drop here. This is the one that when we take a look at velocity, this is the one that's moving outside of, all the other stuff where we discussed. This is the one that has its own momentum onto the downside for the pound. So the question is that what can we compare pound with? I think pound Kiwi, pound Aussie looks good. Even Rob, if you take a look at pound Kiwi from a technical standpoint, they all sort of kind of looks the same. If the Kiwi is weak, pound is really weak as well. So if we see the growth currencies, let's just say that we get a less worst case scenario in the markets, and the markets do rally further, and we see the Aussie rise, we see the dollar pull back. I think these are the ones that they can continue moving lower not because the pound is the strongest, because maybe Kiwi and Aussie will have a stronger bounce. Same thing, pound to CAD, we can take a look at. It is sort of off right now because of the CAD little weakness here. But again, once that worries out of the way, we'll take a look at those key levels to be broken. So 4-hour chart looks great to me. I think these are nice little bear rallies that are taking place that we can continue seeing some nice movements off of.
Yeah, that pound CAD I think is a very interesting one for this week. Let's wrap this up. Equity markets are closed in the U.S. on Monday, and we're going to get the inauguration. And as I said, we are going to get those executive orders, whether we get them Monday night or we get them Tuesday morning. We're going to be getting those and expect those to cause a lot of volatility in dollar, in CAD, in Mexican peso, and also, again, a little bit, I think it's going to be much less in Aussie Kiwi, but there's likely to be some effect there. What is likely to be unaffected right now is Europe. Unless in those executive orders there's tariffs against Europe, and then that's very widely unexpected, and we're going to see some pretty wild movements on that. So again, just be careful around that area. Make sure you know what you're trading. Then after that, I think there are some really good trends going on. Ankit, you covered them well, and the cryptos to me, I know they look high. Any of you doubters who don't love crypto, I know it looks high, but when you just look at it on a technical basis, it's all bullish. It's all bullish across the board, especially for Bitcoin. That's it for the Currency Room, everyone. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.